What's up, guys? Today we were discussing, was Jalen Reagor the right pick for the Philadelphia Eagles at 21?
I believe Jalen Reagor was a good selection for the Eagles at 21 because there were two other options at wide receiver they could have gone. They could have potentially traded up and taken CeeDee Lamb, who was taken with the 17th pick to the Cowboys, or they could have taken Justin Jefferson, who went 22, the pick after, to the Vikings. Last year, the Eagles wide receivers were Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson, Nelson Aguilar, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Matt Collins, and Greg Ward. Deshaun Jackson got hurt week 1, and after week 1, the Eagles lacked a wide receiver threat for the rest of the season because, as the guys I just read, none of those guys are really deep threats. So when you look at the other options with CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, both those guys were primarily slot guys. CeeDee Lamb racked 50% of his 1,327 yards last season in the slot, and Justin Jefferson lined up in the slot 81% of the time. Now, the Eagles have two really good tight ends in Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, Pro Bowl Zach Ertz. So when you have two receivers that are primarily slot guys, that kind of takes away routes for the Zach Ertz and the Dallas Goederts because there's more traffic in the middle of the field. So they went with a guy in Jalen Reagor who lined up wide most of the time at TCU, and he ran a 4.22 40-yard dash at his pro day. And people might complain that he's 5'11", he's kind of small, but this guy had one of the highest vertical leaps in the combine, and he's also a very effective punt and kick returner, which was another hole for the Eagles last season.
Yeah, I can agree with that somewhat. I think it wasn't a bad take on my part, but Justin Jefferson, I feel, was more elite. I mean, he showed he could catch the ball at the big stage at the school LSU, and he also produced about the same average per catch. He averaged freshman year 17, and his junior year he averaged 13. And from that, it's the same almost as Jalen Reagor, and he averaged 14 and 14. But the problem is Jalen Reagor dropped to 9.8%, which was the fourth highest drop percentage in the Big 12 last year. So with that, and also the 40-yard dash, the 4.22 is unofficial, which I understand he might have been that fast, but he said he was putting on weight, and then he was running a 4.47 in his official. And Justin Jefferson, I feel he did line up in the slot, but I think he could be a multitask player, but he definitely gives you the receptions, and Carson Wentz needs someone that can catch the ball and is going to be a reliable receiver. And because the Eagles already have Deshaun Jackson, and now as they saw they've taken Marquise Goodwin after the draft, I feel that they could have used it for someone else, like a built-in receiver. Even though Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert are there, I feel like you need a reliable wide receiver catcher. Other than that, I feel they could have traded back, and I think this would have been the best move for Philly because they could have taken a wide receiver like Denzel Mims potentially in the second or third round and traded back, and maybe they got a linebacker or another wide receiver that they liked, and they could have gotten a couple of more players that would have fit more into the role because I feel like Jalen Reagor was selected a little too early than he should have been, and that's just in my opinion because coming out of TCU, his numbers do represent something, and his quarterback play definitely played a role, but I do feel at a 21 pick, you really have to go that's going to produce. Like, Justin Jefferson is not going to let you down at the receiving core because he produced in the national championship game. He's an elite quarterback, which definitely helped his play. But you saw what he could do. What do you have to say about that?
So the one thing I'm going to say is Justin Jefferson, you look at his numbers, 111 catches, 1,500 yards, 18 touchdowns. Like, that's incredible. But this dude's quarterback was the #1 overall pick in this draft, won the Heisman Trophy, most outstanding player of the national championship game. You look at Jalen Reagor. His quarterback was a freshman who was very sloppy and didn't have a good year at all, and that reflects his numbers. Look at his junior year compared to his senior year. 72 catches to 43. I mean,
Yeah, that's a big drop off. Yeah, so that's why I'm saying the quarterback play. But I just feel that Jalen Reagor should not have been their 21st pick. If they didn't want Justin Jefferson, then I feel they needed to trade back because they had other needs, especially at linebacker. Could they have potentially traded back and gotten a guy like Kenneth Murray or Patrick Queen, or they could have traded back and took a wide receiver like Brandon Ayuk or T. Higgins, but I guess that was more of not their need as a slot. But I feel like T. Higgins would have been a perfect backup for Alshon Jeffrey, and I think he was one of the most underlooked receivers, which could have helped you, and it could have given you more picks to explore because I feel like it was a rushed pick for the Eagles at 21.
I agree that they could have traded back and still gotten Reagor, but I'd have to respect what Howie and Doug did here and the GM and the head coach and taking the guy that they liked the most. And obviously, they liked this guy. They saw a lot of athleticism with him, a lot of speed. He's a deep threat. So they went and got him. It might have been a little too early, but it's too early to say right now.
Yeah, I do agree with that. But another thing is that now they have 3 speedy wide receivers. What if he doesn't start off on the right note and stuff? Will he be playing behind Deshaun Jackson, Marquise Goodwin, because they already have the experience and maybe he's not ready to play yet on the field, and they want a guy that already's played on an astounding team like the Niners and Deshaun Jackson with a hefty career. They are injury-prone players, so he might get playing time without them there, but do you think he'll start from the get-go, other than Justin Jefferson being on the Eagles?
I think he will. I think that Deshaun Jackson's going to be a mentor for him. And I also think that with the draft picks of John Hightower and Quez Watkins, that's going to put more of like a rookie competition. And he's going to be like, I'm a first-round pick for a reason, and I think he's going to work hard, and he's going to get that starting role. But time will tell.
The last thing is CeeDee Lamb he started falling back, and he was projected around the 10th to 15th pick. Some had him even going in the top 10. But he started to fall, and the Cowboys took him.
Yes.
And which limited the Eagles to, I think they panicked, and they went with the best receiver that would have fit them. Because CeeDee Lamb would have been a good fit, or someone like Henry Ruggs that they wouldn't be able to trade up. So I think it was an also cause of panic because they couldn't trade up, and they took Jalen Reagor because they just didn't have a set in stone because they didn't know what was going to happen because Atlanta probably wouldn't trade back, and Dallas decided not to.
Well, with that is, like I said earlier, CeeDee Lamb, 50% of his yards last season from the slot, and the Eagles do not want a slot guy. I think if Henry Ruggs is available at 17, they probably trade up and go get Henry Ruggs because their whole goal is speed this year. So, and to trade up to get that 17th pick, you got to give Dallas another second-round pick. So you kind of just took the defeat there and let them get probably going to be a great player in CeeDee Lamb and still get your guy. Because obviously they wanted him. If they didn't want him, they wouldn't have taken him at 21 because a lot of people didn't have Jalen Reagor going until the second round.
Do you feel that a linebacker should have been taken?
I liked Patrick Queen a lot out of LSU, but I think the biggest need for the Eagles last year was wide receiver help. So I respect this pick because they went with the top need.
Yeah. It was It's all right, but I think they should have still traded back potentially because they could have acquired more picks. But that's about it. That's all I have.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Have a good one.